Welcome to the latest edition of Altrincham Talks, the business edit, and welcome to Sara and Jeremy Fixter. It's great to have you here. I'd love to hear more about your journey into the business that you have now. Having worked with and being friends with somebody who's in your particular business as well, it's really interesting for me to find out. And obviously about your involvement with Altrincham Bid as well.
Yes.
So let's start with your background, where you come from, and how you got into the business that you're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shall we start with our background? So I originally trained as a solicitor. I worked as a solicitor for a few years down in London. And at the time that we started Circle Funerals, I'd left law and I was retraining to be a psychotherapist. So I'll let Jess explain.
Yeah, I worked for many years in doing in-house recruitment for various different financial services type companies and banks in London and Manchester and Sydney as well. It was a career that I'd fallen into when I was away travelling and had continued to do. Just didn't really know what else to do. And I'd always had a desire to set up my own business, really.
Right.
And looking for a change for many years.
Yeah. So you travelled quite a lot then with the role that you had. You mentioned since were you travelling around the world, or were you based in the UK and recruiting?
Well, I used to live in Sydney, so I lived in Sydney, spent 7 years working in recruitment out there, and then worked in London for a number of years, and then back in Manchester,
Right.
and was always had that one eye on something different and a career change, and this is the big career change that we finally took just a few years ago, just almost 4 years ago.
Right. And something different indeed, sort of becoming funeral directors. It's not the immediate first thing that I know what I want to do. I want to be a funeral director. So where did you choose? How did you come to choose that out of any kind of business that you could have started?
So I guess it was down to me a little bit, because I was looking for opportunities, looking for different types of businesses. And we wanted to do something that had a care focus to it. We didn't really want to go into a sort of corporate type environment, having just come from that, and that's not really what suited us as people. And I came across Full Circle Funerals, who are a small funeral director based in West Yorkshire, and they were offering opportunities for people to join their network and become essentially franchisees of their business. And the more I read about Full Circle, the more lights started going on. They were very different in their approach. They looked very different to any funeral director I'd ever seen before. They were light, bright, airy, very modern. They talked about funerals in a much, I guess, easier to understand way, and it was very clear that the way that they did their business was focused around the person who's died and supporting families, and being able to offer options around funerals and being able to make it about the person, not prescribing what should be done in funerals, and by giving people options and a new way of doing things. And it looked like genuinely sort of struck a chord with me, and it seemed like they were, I guess, a disruptor in the marketplace, and it looked like a great opportunity. So I engaged with Full Circle. We went through sort of interviews, met with them, and then also did a trial with them to understand if we could actually do the business as something we could physically do and mentally do. And then from there, conversations continued, and then we set up initially Full Circle Funeral Partners in Altrincham.
Right. And I suppose one of the plus sides to buying a franchise model is, and as a business owner myself, our business has bought a franchise as well. So you're buying, really, for good franchises, a business in a box that already works, the model's been proven, and hopefully you get the support that you need as new business owners to be able to take that model forward. It's not always the case. We've seen the good, bad and the ugly of franchise models. I'm very fortunate with Action Coach that because they're a business coaching company, they're constantly coaching their franchisees as business owners as well. What was the experience for you guys like with going into a franchise model business?
I think Full Circle, I think the way that things are done is of the highest standard. I think the training that's there, I think the openness to provide essentially, really high standard of care to people who are interested in arranging a funeral, people who want the support of a funeral director. I think that was really clear to us from the start, and that was what attracted us. And I think they were offering something, that we already had identified, that we wanted to be involved in caring for people and doing something that really made a difference.
Yeah.
And that's what we felt Full Circle were doing, and doing that incredibly well. And I think both having come from corporate backgrounds where you are well trained, you're well versed in how to provide really good, let's call it customer service from a corporate point of view, but how to listen to the person that you're supporting.
Yeah.
How to apply that to what they need. And then I think generally as people, I was training as a psychotherapist, and I think that really helped me to understand what it was to listen to somebody, to meet somebody where they are, not to make assumptions. And that seemed to really marry well with the skills that we thought, a funeral director could offer. And the relationship we had with Full Circle, we couldn't have been luckier in terms of how they were. Really, really supportive. And I think what they did was offer us an excellent foundation to establish ourselves, to learn how it was to be a funeral director and how to do that incredibly well.
Yeah.
And then, 4 years on, we feel like we've learned and we've grown with them, and now we can kind of, move on and become. We've always been independent, and we've always been proud of that. In the business is owned independently by myself and Jeremy, but now it feels like it really is, us. We've been lucky to retain part of the name. We're now Circle Funerals, because I feel we both felt that we built up, through word of mouth, a reputation within the local area for what it was that we offered, and we didn't want to lose that. So we've, parted ways from Full Circle on incredibly good terms, and we still speak, and we know that we will do. And they've always been partners, and I guess now they'll be peers, in the strictest terms within the industry, and people that we will still speak to, share knowledge and, support one another.
Yeah, and you've got a great stepping stone now to go forward and build your own independent business. Can you tell us something about, because I'm always interested about funeral directors, can you tell us about some of the things that you have to learn, or the certain certifications that you have to have as a funeral director, and about some of the things that probably we don't talk about that you need to know about as a funeral director?
So I think one of the things that people are aware of at the moment is it's an unregulated industry.
Right.
So there are no strict qualifications.
So you don't need...
And there's no regulation. That said, we as sort of independent funeral directors will be pushing for regulation within the industry. And we feel as though Full Circle have set us up to be in a position where when regulation comes, that we'll have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, because we are very process driven, and we're in the way that we are set up, we will be able to meet regulation in the future, where we know a lot of funeral directors out there won't. And that's how it's everything from the paperwork through to the way that we care for people, and due to the way that we run our business, and we run our facility as well.
Yeah.
So what do you need to know? Well, there's a lot to know. I mean, there's the business side of things, but we'll probably leave that to one side. But in terms of the actual specifics of being a funeral director, is understanding how to care for people when they've died, understanding all the care options available for them, and being able to communicate that to families as well. Being able to bring people into our care at all times of the day and night, and being able to do that in a compassionate and a calm and professional way. I guess a lot of the skills you have dealing with people, you have from other experiences in life, but being able to obviously have empathy and compassion with people, and being able to empathise with them, but also being there as someone that can be, I guess, a solid rock for them as well, and to make sure that things go to plan, run to time, and decisions are made when they need to be made as well. Because while we do give people time and space that they need, there is certain things that do need to be done, and processes that need to be followed in terms of how registration goes, in terms of offering advice around other parts of the actual funeral as well. And then it's important to know about what a funeral actually involves, from everything from the vehicles, to the different types of locations available, to the flowers that you might order, to the people required to carry a coffin, and to the different types, either burial or cremation, how that all works, different locations, and then there's all the other options around funerals as well, and about personalising them and being able to make the funeral about the person who's died.
Yeah, I suppose there's all the technical aspects and the systems that you need to go through from start to finish, but I suppose, if anything, it's probably the most people-centric business that you could find, isn't it? You know, in terms of working with the families and obviously taking care of the person who's coming into your care as well.
Yeah,
I think really of another business where you're so involved with people.
Yeah. You know, our position is really, it's a privilege, I think, to be able to care for somebody who's died on behalf of their family, and do that in a way that you're speaking to the family as far as they're comfortable about the person who's died, what's important to them, what's important to the family, you know, what are the things that they want to avoid, and that really you're caring for that person on their behalf. And it's understanding the involvement that the family want to have in that. Some families want to be incredibly involved in, you know, alongside with myself or with Jeremy, you know, washing or dressing the person who's died, you know, dressing them in ceremonial clothes, if that's important to them. You know, we've had families who've come in who've prepared their own essential oils at home, you know, aromatherapy, because they want to bring those in and you know, care for their person, you know, in the same way that they perhaps would in life.
That's what it's, as you said. I mean, it's a privilege, isn't it? When someone entrusts a member of their family to you,
they are. That's
a huge
that's the word that we often talk about, entrusting. In that, you know, the trust that they're putting in us to care for their person, and we always want to do that in the way that's right for the family. So we don't want to make any assumptions. We don't want to say this is the way that it's done. We want to give people information as they're ready about what is possible, and try and gauge, you know, in terms of the involvement that they want to have. And people might have, you know, questions, and you can gently give them some information and ask if they'd like more. You know, it's a real fine balance between not bombarding the people with information and choice, but finding out what's important to them and catering the information and the choice that you give around there.
Let's talk about the business side of it, of course, because you've come from not being business owners into being business owners. What were the things that you really needed to learn, which were a little bit of a challenge when you first went into business for yourselves? Because there's the technical side of running a business, and most people, when they go into business for themselves, they're already really technically competent at the thing they're going into business to do. But you guys, you had to learn the technical side of it, plus some of the business sides of it as well. So where did you feel you were really strong when you first started, and what were the biggest challenges for you when you set up?
I mean, before we set up, we spent a number of weeks training with Full Circle in West Yorkshire, so it wasn't sort of starting from day one with no experience. I'd been working as a funeral director, I'd directed funerals. I'd done all facets of the funeral industry. I'd worked within the business in West Yorkshire. So, I mean, the technical side of the business, it's everything from just dealing with the suppliers and accounts. There's nothing overly complex. Accounting is probably one of the areas I knew nothing about. Maybe you are girls.
I don't touch it, so I do not touch it.
Still don't know a great deal about it. But you learn as you go, from setting up your phone systems to setting up, understanding all elements of running the business, speaking with suppliers, dealing with that side of things as well. But
I think we were strong on customer care. I think we knew how we, as funeral directors, we wanted to support the people that, you know, were going to need our support. And in terms of how flexible you are, in terms of how available you are, in terms of how compassionate, in terms of how you listen, I think those are people skills that, as Jez says, like you learn through life. I think, we needed accountancy, was not something we'd had a lot of experience with. And social media, I'd had some experience personally, but I wasn't a great one for social media, and I had to quickly learn, you know, how to do that. And I think you just have to put yourself out there. I think the first time you write that post, you are worrying. You are really thinking, oh my, you know, you're checking everything, which, you know, you should do, but you're worrying about how it's going to be received. But I think you gain confidence in if you're confident about your message and about the service that you're, how you're supporting people, I think that grows. And then you start to realize that if I'm putting things out in a gentle, informative way, and that's what we always try to do, try to tell people about what's possible about funeral choice to make them feel informed, because we thoroughly believe that the more information, people have, the more they know what's possible, and more likely they are to find, the support that's right for them.
Yeah.
And I think your confidence with those things builds. But it was certainly hard. I think we felt when we first started, you'd be supporting families day to day, and then of an evening you go home, and because it was just, and it really still is, me and Jeremy, there's still the accounts to do after you put the kids to bed at 9:00 at night. There's still that social media post to write. It's the other things, behind the scenes that you don't fully appreciate how much time they're going to take until you start.
It's a challenge starting your own business, and I work with a lot of people in your position who just started or relatively recently started the businesses. And when you first start out, quite often it is just you guys, and you've got all the stuff that you have to do from an operational viewpoint.
Yeah.
But then you've got marketing and sales, and finance and admin, and everything else that goes around still to do outside of you. The operational stuff as well. How easy was it you talked about social media in terms of marketing the business, and I suppose in your sector, from a sales perspective, it's a very soft sort of relationship building sort of sale for you guys. How easy was it for you to market and sell what you do when you first started?
I think we've always, and we still are, as you say, just been really conscious about how we communicate our message, and that when you're sending a message out there into the community, that you're speaking to people who may have recently been bereaved, who are dealing with grief themselves. So everything has to be very gently worded. And I think it's a case of, as you say, I think word of mouth has been incredibly important for us because it is such a position of trust. So building up that sense of, we support a family, and, that family is hopefully, we have been incredibly helpful to them. We have hopefully made things that bit easier for them. Perhaps we've helped them in a way that they didn't realise a funeral director would be able to help, in terms of, feeling listened to and, having what was important to them taken into consideration. And then if they're, feeling confident, happy with, our support, then they mention it to other people, and that makes a huge difference. And then we've always wanted to be people who were active in our local community, and showing people that we want as funeral directors to be approachable, to be people who are seen as friendly, to be seen as people who are empathetic, who are human, who, have connection with the people that we are, living and working with in the same area. So I think going out there, and when you first meet people, they might be a bit taken aback at a networking meeting, but, you're there as a funeral director. But I think people began to understand that we were there to do it in a very gentle way, in a very empathetic way, and in a way that was just open to people finding out more, because everybody is going to be bereaved in their lifetime. Everyone is going to have to deal with bereavement and grief. And the more we talk about those things, and the more we open up those conversations, the easier it's going to be for people. And if you're someone who, in a room of people, someone might be experiencing something themselves, or they might have a friend who's experiencing something, and if they're able to come up to you because they see you as approachable and say, this might seem like a silly question, I always say there's no such thing as a silly question. And we weren't brought up necessarily to talk about these things. So if I can be seen as a person, if Jeremy can be seen as a person that is approachable and that gives someone the opportunity to speak about an experience they've had in the past, or ask a question about something that might be happening now or in the future, then we're happy that that's helping people.
So there are, obviously, you're in a competitive industry.
Yes.
A lot of people will say, there's only two things that are certain in life, death and taxes, as they say. So there is always going to be a call for funeral directors, but there are some big organisations out there. And there are a number of really successful independent funeral directors like yourselves. What would you say it is about Circle Funerals that sets you apart from some of the other service providers in your sector in the Northwest?
Yeah, I guess if we were to talk locally, well, firstly, we're the only independent funeral director in Altrincham. And I believe the level of care that we give and the personal touch is unrivaled. And I don't think with large organisations, their model is set up to do that. We know that if a family rings us on a Sunday night at 11 o'clock, it'll be me, Sara, or one of our team that will pick the phone up, and we'll spend as much time as we need to talk you through what needs to happen if a person's died, or if it's just someone calling up to inquire about funerals or a funeral for something in the future. We're there to support families. You're not going to be getting a call centre. You're going to be getting a person at the end of the phone who genuinely cares and wants to help you. And whether you have a funeral with us or not, we're there as somewhere people can go and ask questions and be supportive. So I think that's one of the key things. I think our approach is more modern, though we do a lot of traditional funerals, and we have very close connections with churches and member parishes ourselves at St Vincent's in Altrincham. But we do offer a modern approach. We do offer an environment where people come in and feel relaxed. We don't have net curtains and dark lighting and organ music playing in the background. We're light, we're bright, we're airy. People come in, they say it's like coming into a spa or coming into my own home. They feel relaxed and at home, and people will comment on that. It's really important when families come here that they can feel in a relaxed environment. I think that's definitely one thing we do that other funeral directors locally are possibly not doing. There are good funeral directors in Altrincham, and there are some good competitors who do a very good job. So it's always competitive what we do, but I do believe our approach is different. The look and feel of us are different. The personal touch is different.
Also, what we do in the community, I think, is really different. We will attend, exhibitions to hold stalls about bereavement support, bereavement signposting. We offer free webinars, free talks on, topics around death, dying and bereavement, because as I've touched on before, these things help people. We're involved, we want to be out there, as I say, to be approachable. So I think the fact that we're offering these opportunities for people to learn more, we're out in the community, we're doing those things. I think that's what sets us apart.
It's really important. Having been through it myself a few times now, unfortunately, you don't realise just how big a part grief can play in somebody's life until it impacts you. And even then, sometimes you don't really recognise and identify with it straight away.
Yeah.
So being able to offer that sort of before, afterwards, whenever it happens to be for somebody, and extend it, because it's not just one day, is it? It's not just a funeral. It goes far beyond that for a lot of people, and I think that's really interesting that you can offer that kind of additional service and support for people as it extends out into that.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of different ways of actually holding a funeral nowadays, isn't there? And there must be some quite unusual, and I'm sure even in your 4 years you've seen some unusual requests. I know from a friend of mine who's also a funeral director, they've had all sorts of unusual requests over the years. Have you had one or two that you can share with us, maybe, that are out of the ordinary?
Yeah, I think, and I think these are shared with permission, shared on an anonymous basis, but the family have said that they're comfortable with us talking about, because it gives other people ideas and lets them know what's possible. But one that springs to mind, two daughters who each owned camper vans. I remember them asking us, and they were quite nervous about asking us, but they wanted to take their mum to her funeral service in one of their vehicles, in their own camper van. And they were like, is this possible? And we said, absolutely it is.
It's personal to them, isn't it?
Yes,
It's absolutely right.
Yeah, it's what's right for them. Yeah. And if we can help to put something together, if we can help support in a way that helps that family, then we'll absolutely do that. So we said yes. So on the actual day, they asked for the funeral to take place on a Sunday, which I think is unusual because they said that Sunday lunch was one of their mum's favourite things to do, and they wanted to go for Sunday lunch after their mum's service. So not all crematoriums are open on Sunday, but we knew of one that was. We could make ourselves available on a Sunday. We said absolutely. So they came to our service. We helped them to put their mum's coffin into the camper van, which was beautifully decorated with blankets, with throws. They put flowers on the dashboard, messages of love. The coffin itself was a white cardboard coffin that they'd chosen because they wanted it to be kind of a blank canvas that they then had decorated as part of a kind of creative ceremony, a creative time together at our funeral service. So the funeral and the coffin was placed inside the camper van. We said we'll follow just in case you have any issues, in case you break down, something happens, we're there. And it was just incredibly personal and incredibly beautiful, as there were lots of other touches that they added to the service as well, but just made it, we got to know them as two sisters. It felt to us, having spoken to them, that just they said to us it was incredibly personal to them, to their mum, and the people who were there. You could hear them talking about it amongst each other in terms of, oh my goodness, this is so like the person who has died. This is what, I would imagine her to want.
Yeah.
This feels like her.
So the most important thing is to talk to you about whatever was important to them and to the family, because there's lots of things you can do that maybe they don't think are possible, but they're absolutely possible.
Essentially, with funerals, there's only one of two things that you need to do. So there needs to be a burial or a cremation. The rest is entirely up to the family.
Yeah.
And we as funeral directors will facilitate anything that if it's possible, we'll do it. And we'll go wherever we need to go, do whatever we need to do to make sure that family get the funeral they want. Honestly, there are some limits, but you can do any type of service, have it any way you like. There's no rules or regulations about what you have to do as long as the burial or cremation follows. And again, that example from me, just a quick one would be we had a funeral in someone's back garden on a summer's day, and it was a small family gathering. Had a lovely garden, looked over the fields, and traditional.
Perfect place for them. For them.
Yeah, for them.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they just spent time in the garden all afternoon, had a ceremony for themselves, and then there was a short committal afterwards. But it was just it was relaxed, it was how they wanted it, and just, went out how they felt was a way to, I guess, reflect their mum.
I suppose everybody's different. For me, funerals should be celebrations of life rather than, yes, you grieve with somebody who's passed, but you celebrate their life, I think, as well. That's always my sort of unbounded memory, sort of, when I think about people. So we'll talk about the bid in a minute, but what's in the future for you guys with Circle Funerals then? You've had a change of name, you're now fully independent. What's in your future, in your 3 to 5 year plan? What are we looking for from Circle Funerals?
I think growth, as you'd expect with any business. So we're looking to further establish ourselves in the local area around here, continue to build more links with the community, and continue to increase awareness of Circle Funerals. And then at some point, I think we will look to move and open another business. Where the widening up to there, and then look to have one that would be an area that can support the other one, and then look to sort of build from there. I don't think we want to take over the world or become the biggest funeral director with lots and lots of premises, but certainly I think there's room for growth and another service. I'm going to be looking at that in the nearish future. I think
one of the keys to that is, at the moment, the business only works with you two.
Yes.
In it.
Yeah.
If you want to open another location, how do you make that work? Because you can't be in two places at once, obviously. So there's a lot of thought and prep needs to go into that, and that's another conversation completely that we really haven't got time for today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bid for a minute, because we are on the Altrincham Bid podcast, of course. How has the bid helped you as a funeral director, first of all, as a business in Altrincham?
It was really soon after we'd started at the beginning of 2022, and Mandy and Kate reached out and came to speak to us, and I remember being really impressed by how sensitive they were to the fact that we were funeral directors. They'd obviously really thought about how the bid could help us. We are within the bid area. They didn't just come with a kind of patter, they came with we've had a look at you as Full Circle Funerals. You know, this is what we understand you're about. These are some of the events that we think you might be able to get involved with. Perhaps some of these others aren't as suitable, you know, in terms of the nature of your business and the way that you market yourselves. But how about these for ideas? So that was absolutely fantastic for us. And then I think at the beginning, when you're establishing yourself, and perhaps funerals and dying and end of life is not something that people naturally are going to be that comfortable with, to have, for example, a post about, you know, part of Mental Health Week or Wellbeing Week promoted by the bid was, you know, incredibly helpful, and they had a reach that we couldn't have hoped to have, you know, in those early days.
I think with the platforms that they have, social media platforms that the bid has, really helped local businesses like yours to get out there and reach your details, especially as a new business as well. And you love the bid that much that you wanted to get involved. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now for the bid.
So I was very honoured to be asked to become a board member, and that was at the beginning of or midway through 2025, and then towards the end of the summer of 25, I was asked if I'd like to step into the role as chairperson, which no, not at all. Which was just really, really lovely to be asked, and I think you know, Mandy and Kate said to me, you're out in the community, Sara. You know, you've built up a reputation for someone who is local to Altrincham, who gets involved with a lot that Altrincham does. You know, you live in Altrincham. You know, how do you feel? And I said, oh, wow, yeah. And it was very much an extension of, I think, how I already am in terms of, you know, being out there in the local community. So I think what the bid had just, you know, established itself in terms of, you know, having the successful ballot again, it was a very, you know, easy position to step into. And I felt that what the bid was already doing, I had personal experience of it helping us. And I thought, yeah, what a privilege. I'd love to be involved.
Brilliant. Lovely. Look, we're almost out of time now. Where does half an hour go? It's unbelievable.
Oh, it does.
A couple of quick questions to end, and I'll ask you for some details of contact details so people can get in touch with you. If you could offer yourselves one piece of advice, if you go back in time to just 4 or 5 years ago, and offer yourselves one piece of advice just before you started, what would that piece of advice be, do you think? And for you and for other want-to-be business owners out there.
I think for me it is be clear about your values, be clear about your ethos. And I think this is something that we did, and it was something that we did well, and have confidence in those and let those direct you. And if you do that, you know, you will come across as genuine. You will come across as somebody who is there to help people, to make a difference. And I think that was one thing that we did. And surround yourself with people who you are working with, you know, whether that's suppliers. You know, we work with celebrants who, you know, work with us to support other people. You know, people who have a similar ethos to you and are doing what they're doing for a similar reason. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And for me, one thing would be, which I probably still don't do, but would still trying to do, is when in the business that we're in, it is often exceptionally busy. It can be 7 days a week, 12 plus hours a day. But then there are quieter times as well. And I think it's just to understand that there are quieter times, and during those quiet times, take some time and to sort of reset, and don't be worrying about the business too much, and just take a little bit of a breather. And that's a piece of advice. A family supported man said that to me. He said, when you are a bit quieter, just enjoy it a bit and realise it will come again, and not to worry about it.
You know, I think both of those points are really important. Number one, you've got to look after yourself before you look after your business, because if you stop working, the business stops working.
Yeah.
You know, the business is there to give you more life, not
Yes.
you to give your lives to the business.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think from a values and culture perspective, values are the foundation for every business, and they're what everything else is built on. So they're two brilliant pieces of advice for your younger selves and for any want-to-be business owners out there. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you guys, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can email us at info@circlefunerals.co.uk.
Okay.
Or they can call us 0161 928 6080. Lots of information on our website, which is circlefunerals.co.uk.
Brilliant. Sarah, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.